Okay, looks like we're recording, and I am super excited to have on the program David Rams. David Rams, look, I know most of you are already going to know David Rams, but he has been one of the most prolific animal rights activists over the years, creating massive loads of content, doing all kinds of activism. And he's one of the people that we invited on Wayne Shung's channel early on. He's been a great partner to us. And I've been watching David Rams ever since, God, probably since like I went vegan like 7 years ago. You're one of the main channels I've watched. So this is very exciting for me. David, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on. That's really cool that you were watching for so long. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's always a little bit weird for me to hear that someone is like sometimes I meet people, they say, I feel like I know you. And they say, I feel like I
Right.
really know you because they say I've had you in my headphones listening to some of your 4 or 5 hour podcasts and live streams, and it feels like we're friends already. And to me, I love that because I'd love to start at that base level, like, oh, we're already friends. But
Yeah.
it's like I don't know them though.
Right.
And they're like, I know this, I know this, I know you're who this is, and you're this about you. And I'm like, God, I need to catch up, man. I need to know who you are. Let's ask some questions about you now. Can you do a podcast for me? And I'll put
Yeah,
it in
no,
my ear.
let me run it back. Joining us today is my best friend, David Rams.
It's
Yeah,
really nice, though. It's a really nice feeling.
yeah.
Actually, I just did some calculations recently. You might be interested in this. I wanted to see how much video content I put out in 2024, like in
I
terms of
saw that.
length,
I saw
right?
you do
Well,
that at the end of the Rammys.
but I did
Yeah.
a different calculation. I did another one to
Oh,
see like, okay, how many hours or how many minutes of content did I put out, like of just me talking? And it turned out it was if you watched my videos from 2024 between 9 till 5 p.m. every day, it would take you 11 days to finish them. So I thought that was really cool. So
wow.
11 days, 9 to 5, no breaks. It would take you 11 days to get through the 2024's content. That's how much there was. It was something
Yeah.
like, I can't remember, it was 96 hours or something like that. It was like,
Mm.
so you'd need to, I can't remember exactly. If you were just watching it without sleeping, it would take you like 2 or 3 days or something. Yeah,
Well, I
something
was
like that.
watching your Rammys stream just a
Yeah.
few hours ago. I was trying to like, I've been watching you for so many years that I'm like, again, this kind of like I feel like I know this guy, but I'm like, I should do a little research and see what he's been up to in the last week or two. And so I was watching the Rammys, and yeah, you did this calculation of like sort of what happened in 2024, and
Yeah.
you had calculated that it was basically like 11 days a month you were posting something, and that was not even including all the social media. So like that amount of content, it was a
Get that.
loads of
Yeah.
content.
That was just
And
YouTube. Yeah.
yeah, of just YouTube. And yeah, I know you to be someone, and now I've been able to talk to you more behind the scenes, and I know you do just like a ton of activism. And yeah, it's just you're incredibly prolific, and it's very impressive. To be honest, like, so I've been doing YouTube now like 6 months or so, and I can see how much work it takes. It's hard to build an audience, it's hard to keep at it. So that's just how long have you been doing YouTube? Because it's impressive to just keep it going that long.
It's been since around 2017, and
Okay.
it really stepped up though in around 2019 is when I think I really got into it more seriously and stopped treating it as kind of like a pastime. But yeah, I've been involved in social media activism from 2017 and going at it since then. And I think honestly, to be totally honest with you, I think I might have a bit of an unfair advantage on other people. Not because I had money or because I had some kind of friend or family who was like, really into all this stuff. It's nothing like that. But I think, and it's not official yet, but I'm pretty sure based on friends who are diagnosed, I'm pretty sure I've got ADD, which
Mm,
if you know anything about ADD, it means that you can hyper focus and obsess on things for a very long time. But then also you switch off sometimes and you can't focus on it at all. But yeah, so some people close to me have mentioned that like you did 24 hours on live on stream on YouTube. You 24 hours. Did you drink coffee? And I'm like, no, I don't drink coffee. Did you take anything? Nothing at all. They're like, yeah, you probably have ADD. Because there's
mm.
no way like a normal human brain could survive 24 hours live streaming without coffee and withat any stimulant.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Good.
but
And
that's
you've
yeah, like a
done a
little.
number.
little personal nugget of information for you there that is yet
Yeah.
to be confirmed.
Something that can like work against you, but also work for you, I guess. And yeah, you've done some
Yeah.
of those really long streams where you've reacted. Let's react to like 10 hours of this person's
Mm,
content or that person's content. That's an
right.
impressively long period of time to go.
Hmm.
So I'll tell you, like, one of the things that I've super appreciated about you over the years, and I guess like the way that I started watching you was probably, I was probably watching a lot of your like face the facts
Yeah.
videos where you were like kind of recapping the news. And it was just like a nice way to sort of recap what had happened that week. And also with your wit and humor, you're very good at that. Like you have this, even watching the Rammys awards,
Mhm.
which I love the other day. You have this. I'm specifically thinking while you were watching the Cam interview with the uh, I don't know,
Yeah.
the
Reverend
Hunter
Hunter.
guy. Yeah, yeah. And just to be able to watch that with you, you're sort of like Jim from The Office. You're doing your little looks at the camera, and it. I just, you need that someone watching with you. So anyway, that's probably how I got started, was watching that kind of stuff. But what I really appreciated is how you've really supported small channels, and I've come to so many activists through you. Um, and then like, so I'm pretty sure that Elle, our mutual friend of Vegan Gays, I'm pretty
Mm.
sure I discovered her through you because you would feature so many different people. And then she does the same thing. So I've discovered all these activists through you. And I just, I love that about you, that you support these channels and you drive people to other people's content and people from around the world, like people from India and all the, it's just amazing. So thank you for that. Thank you. That
Mhm.
ripples outward so far.
No, I try to. Yeah, it's that's part of the reason I do that is because of what I believe, and this is before I even got into activism. I would meet different people, and I'm very analytical with people. I'm also very loving and caring. It's not like I'm a robot, but I'm a very analytical. When I meet people, I whatever they tell me about them, I remember core things about them or things that I think that could be helpful for other people or for me. And so for example, with yourself, I know now you're doing this YouTube channel. I know you're heavily involved with the activism that's coming up. That you've got some big things coming up. I know you're heavily involved with Wayne. So now those are three things I know about you. Now, when I leave this call, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I know all of that. So if somebody mentions something about, oh, I'd love to get involved with some activism with Wayne, well, then I know that Wayne is a very busy guy, so it's unlikely he'll get a response from Wayne. But I know they can speak to you because you're involved with activism with Wayne and you're open to talking about these things and you've got a little bit more time, I suppose, than Wayne. And so
Mhm.
that's in my head now, right? And that these are the kinds of connections I like to make between people, and I've done that all my life basically. And this is what I'm doing when it comes to sharing other activists, right? And it's all for the benefit. Before activism, it was for the benefit of other people. I have a natural kind of inclination. I want to help people, right? When people tell me their problems, I'm not a good listener. I want to fix it. That's
Mhm.
usually a problem
Mhm.
for a lot of people. Sometimes people just want you to listen. I'm not a listener. I'm a fixer. So don't tell me your problems unless you want me to try and fix them. And so when it comes to now with activism, it's less about just helping people. It's more about now helping the movement to help animals. And so yeah, when I come across smaller accounts, and I've got a kind of medium-sized account with people who would absolutely love those accounts, it's kind of everyone gets helped because it's my audiences now find people that maybe they really enjoy. Those people who are doing activism are finally getting the accolades and the support they deserve, which in turn helps their videos reach more people, which helps animals. So it's there's
Mhm.
no loss on this train of events. Like it's just gain, 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 gain.
Yeah.
And I noticed that especially that it's a shame that not more people with big accounts do this. And it's no throwing shade on anybody. Everyone's got their own stuff. I get it. But it really doesn't take much to do a live stream a month or maybe every 2 months or whatever, even once a year, just to do like a spotlight on other people's work for one stream. I mean, it's not going to cost you anything, but it could potentially, really boost some smaller accounts that have just started, and maybe they'll keep doing this work for longer because of this boost they got in the beginning that gave them that kick they needed to really dig into it and double down on it. So yeah, I'm really passionate about that, and I think it's
Yeah.
really, really important.
Yeah, and you were doing that just recently, and I'm going to get into some of the specifics of the Rammys. So we're talking to, I keep mentioning the Rammys, and this is just sort of like a tongue in cheek that every year end David does the Rammys Awards. It's so great, and he'll like hand out awards for the biggest meat flake of the year, or the greatest vegan of the year, or like the unsung hero award, and that was one that I really want to highlight in this chat, but we'll
Mhm.
get to it. It's just really it's just so great. Yeah, and I do also wish that some of the bigger channels would do that, but of course everybody's got to choose their content, and some of those people who have those giant channels are because they're laser focused on what they're doing, and that's great. So yeah,
Of
we're
course.
not throwing shade.
No, not at
um
all.
yeah. So I've noticed also over the past year that you've been really kind of looking hard at your own content and what you want to do with your channel, and it's sort of evolving kind of as we
Mhm.
speak. And I think it's almost like a living, breathing document in a way. Like it seems to be still evolving.
Yeah.
But how would you sort of frame the sort of evolution that you've gone through in the last year or so?
Yeah, I think it's an important one. A friend asked me recently, we were pointing out, we're having a private conversation and just kind of highlighting how there were some people that we've worked with, or suppose that we're in contact with within the movement, and they seem to really struggle to understand a certain point of view. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but they seem to really misunderstand or just really not get this point of view. And then I realized, I said to him, like, I mean, well, this was me not that long ago, actually, a couple of years ago. And he asked me, what changed for you, actually? What got you to start thinking in different ways and get out of this kind of rigid black and white thinking? And my answer was that it was a kind of a combination of things that have inspired this change. I mean, um, I think what first did it, I think, was seeing some things in activism, in the activism world, that I felt were counterproductive. And intuitively, I felt that I mean, looking at the outcome of this particular thing, I can't see how this works any more than just being porn for vegans, right? And I was kind of
Yeah.
questioning that, and I watched it, and it's like it's not the end of the world, but it's also not really. It just seems to be vegans really enjoy this, but they're the only ones that are really having any kind of positive impact from it. Everybody else seems to be either telling them to go F themselves or making fun of them. And it was kind of like, okay, well, and then I realized, well, okay, I put the lens on myself. There's no use me looking at other people's stuff and thinking, what about me? Have I done that? Do I do that? The answer was yes, actually, quite a lot. I started analyzing my own past work, and wow, it looks like I've actually done a lot of my work has been with vegans in mind rather than change in mind. And it kind of just hit me like a brick, like, oh my God, the thing that I've just found to be like a bit, oof, I've been doing for a long time. And that kind of coincided with me attending some conferences and kind of looking for some more ideas and meeting different people. Because of another project that I'm working on, that kind of made sense now to go to the conferences and spend a bit more time meeting different people involved in different areas, because I have a project that requires that. I need to meet different people now. I need to, which as you know, is a confidential project, can't get into, but we needed to network because we couldn't do it on our own. And we got as far as we could by ourselves. We needed to meet people to help with the rest. And so, okay, great, go to these conferences, meet people. And that exposed me to all of these other ideas and these other things. And I'd already started to have this kind of, analytical awakening of my own content, starting to feel like I'm not aligned anymore. And then I meet all these other people who are doing all these different things, political activism, different sorts of kind of using welfare as a tool, as opposed to being welfareists. These people were actually, they're full on vegan. They're all about animal rights and liberation, but they were discussing how they use welfare as a tool and how actually they're in positions of power in politics and things like this. And then just opened my eyes to this whole other side. And then people who were spending their entire lives dedicated to studying human psychology and the psychology of behavior change and learning what they think. And what they were saying to do was the polar opposite of what a lot of the work I'd been doing. And there were occasional moments where I had been doing it that way, and they had resulted in really good results. And if you look at somebody like Cliff Grant, an activist, Cliff Grant, he pretty much always does what the behavioral specialist would recommend to do in an activism scenario, and you'll see the results he gets are incredible. People changing on the spot, people messaging him after the conversation, telling him he's changed their life, and really heartwarming, really dramatic changes in people from applying these principles. And it all just kind of, like I said, it was like a ton of bricks, basically. It all hit me at once, and I started to realize that, okay, while there is a place for the work that I had mostly done in the past, it seemed like that place was good for generating views. It was good for generating subscribers. It was good for generating buzz and getting everyone discussing and whatnot. But it wasn't necessarily good for creating behavior change. And realizing the difference between those two things led me down a path of, okay, but how do I combine these two things then? How do I create stuff that reaches big amount of people, so it's spicy, it's exciting, but that doesn't end up potentially creating a worse outcome? Because, and I'll just finish with this point here, like, if I make a video that is me screaming at someone in the street, calling them a piece of shit, animal abuser, etc., which is not completely different to some of the stuff I used to do. If I do that and it gets 1 million views, and of those 1 million views, we say we generate, I don't know, 10,000 clicks on Challenge 22, right? And so that's that some people would say that's a pretty good outcome. 10,000 people sign up to Challenge 22 is a pretty good outcome, and yeah, that is a great outcome. But what about the 990,000 people who didn't click or comment or message? What are they doing? What are they feeling? The answer is we don't know. And when I started to think, well, wait a minute, what is the likelihood of the impact on the rest of them? Is it likely that they're feeling good about the message and feeling like, oh yeah, do you know what? This set me off on a path. Or is it likely that they're thinking I'm insane? What's more likely, right? And you got to start to look at probabilities, and you start to realize, wait a minute, it's more likely that they think I'm insane versus that they're taking this seriously. So the question became, like how to get that same impact. How do you get 1 million people to watch a video that isn't just some massive, aggressive, clickbaity kind of, brain rot, basically, video, right? That's going viral for all the wrong reasons. How do you get a viral video that has the good messages, strong enough that it goes viral, but not so strong that you end up with hundreds of thousands of people who think that,
you're nuts.
They'll never listen to you. They go the other way. They go to carnivore. They go. How do you create that same virality with a better impact? And this is where I'm at now. I still don't have the answer, but I'm pretty convinced that the ways that a lot of vegans go viral, I'm quite convinced that I don't think it's a net positive impact. And that was myself included with some of my viral videos too. And that was the reason for the change, basically.
Wow. And it's really hard. The balance that you're trying to strike of going viral while making like positive change is, I imagine, really hard. It just gives me a lot of hope to hear you talk like that, just because, like, even if you don't stumble across the answer or figure out the answer, just the fact that you're analyzing like constantly, there's like a humility in that. I think, especially if someone I would consider your channel to be very successful in terms of like reach, views, everything. And I think that a lot of people could kind of sit on their laurels when they've reached that and say like, well, no, I'm doing it right. Look, people like me, that sort of thing. And you're not doing that. You're like, what's going to be most effective? And I appreciate that you bring up, like, I'm not just here trying to make porn for vegans, basically, yeah, while it's great that we have this support, like I mentioned, like one of the things I appreciate is supporting other activists and stuff. But ultimately, we are trying to reach those people that we can't. It's so hard to bust out of the circle of our circle. It's just and a lot of it's like trying to figure out algorithms and all these kinds of things that now I'm just like, I don't even want to think about, but now that I'm on YouTube, I have to think a little bit about that.
For sure.
So
For sure. It's tricky, and it's definitely worth thinking about. And I think I'm writing a Substack article about this right now, by the way. So everything I'm saying now, if it's a lot for people, you head over there and it will all be down on paper at some point. Well, paper, you know what I mean? It'll be in writing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel that too many of us, you'll fall into this as well at some point, Jeremy. Too many of us fall into this trap of okay, this type of video got me basically famous. therefore that's the type of video that's effective activism. That is not necessarily the case. Like I said earlier, if you get a million views on a video, that doesn't mean that it's an effective video for animals. It means it's an effective video at getting a million views. That's all. That's all it means. And until I am erring on the side of caution. If somebody proves to me that their video, say they go out and they do say something, just scream at somebody, really get into a fight with somebody on purpose for views, if they can somehow prove to me that of those million views, the vast majority, like a high percentage of them, actually 100% are positively influenced, until they can prove that to me, we have to assume that it's having a negative impact, because from what we know about human behavior and psychology, screaming in the street tends to not go down very well with most people. And so if millions of people are seeing it, chances are pretty high that those millions of people are going the opposite direction to where we want them to go. And we see that. I mean, look, the carnivore movement, the anti-vegan movement, didn't come out of nowhere, you know? And it was a direct reaction. I mean, look at the carnivore movement, and they don't just eat all meat and, you know, that's all. They don't just stop there. They turn on vegans too. They come after vegans. And I think largely a reason for that could well be the types of behaviors that I'm discussing now, like that actually it's a direct response. And the popularity of those movements could well be due to the popularity of some of these really polarizing videos that actually drove people into the arms of the carnivores, because they look at the vegans and look at this person, they think, wow, that person is absolutely insane. And then they look at the carnivore who's just basically, usually there's some kind of muscly guy or whatever, just talking normally on camera, and oh, they seem way more reasonable. Maybe they know what's up. I think these kind of things are the things we've got to think about. We've got to think about our image and how we come across, and we've got to try to, you know, it's sad to see it this way, but, you know, image and the kind of way you seem and appear is a lot of people that is more important to them than the things you're saying.
You know, it makes me think too, because I often say this, and I say it with pride almost, like, I don't care how someone feels about me. And, you know, maybe that's incorrect, you know, like it. So sometimes I fall into, like, you know, it's like, I just want the message to be sound. But if they don't like me walking away from a conversation or something that I'm having, that's fine. But you make a point, and I like that you brought up Cliff Grant, because, you know, when you watch Cliff's videos, like, it's just something about him. Like, he has this aura. But I come back to, I come back to the word humility, because that's how he approaches people. Like, he's always very quickly to remind people, look, I'm not judging you. I used to eat animals, but here's the question. It's a tough one. Do you support these industries, basically? And yeah, I think just, it's like the word of the day, I think, humility. Like, I've said it about you, having the humility to evolve your channel and to look critically at your own content. Cliff having the humility to talk to people in a way that's not, you know, you're a bad person. No, I was this person. Like, it does seem to be effective. And like you said, Cliff gets results. I mean, and that's another channel that I think you elevated. You helped to elevate Cliff in a way. And
I hope so.
I mean, yeah. And I mean, Cliff, you know, Cliff has done it himself. He goes out there with a camera, but, you know, it's really nice. I've seen so many channels embrace Cliff because, for one, he's just I know you've talked to him behind the scenes. He's just a super nice guy, like, even behind the camera. And that's another thing that I started this channel with, the idea of, like, some of the people in the movement who get like a bad rap. And having, you know, had the privilege to work with Wayne and talk to people, some behind the scenes, I'm like, whoa, these people are super nice. And I kind of want people to know that. I want them to know that about you, that you've been just, like, really kind behind the scenes. It's not a show that you're putting on for the camera. If you're doing like 4 hours of a live stream or 10 hours, it's hard to fake that, honestly.
Yeah.
So hopefully people can see that. But yeah, that's just been really, really interesting. Let me talk about one specific thing that you did, which was really interesting. And I've been watching this guy some too, because he makes really entertaining content. That this guy Jadion, that you got this interview with, massive channel. So this was, to me, this is a coup. This is one of those things that's really, really beneficial to have had you. So basically, I'll let you tell some of the story, but just, like, really recapping, Jadian had done this
Hmm.
prank in a restaurant where he went to a vegan restaurant and he served up real meat. He brought his own meat and cooked it. Really kind of a shitty thing to do. You called
Right.
it out. You got this interview with him. I wonder how you think that interview went because he was kind of dismissive, but I looked at some of the chat and I saw people saying like, "Look, this guy's making some good points. I think you
Hmm.
were doing really well." I'll just put it out there. I know you could always like say like, well, "Should I have said this or that?" Everybody's always second guessing. But how do you
Right.
think that went?
I think I think the with Gideon and probably also the debate or whatever chat I had with Charlie Veach as well. I don't know if you saw that. He's quite famous on YouTube and famous in England at least. And I think also this debate I had with this farmer, the most recent one, I think they all went more or less the same way. And actually, I would say that from memory, the Gideon debate, that debate and the other debates could have been the kind of the beginnings of applying a more kind of behavior change mindset to the way I was speaking, because you'll see with the Gideon debate and these other debates, a lot of people in the comments, vegans, were disappointed that I didn't smash them, that I didn't destroy them, because they see my other videos at the time where I was very, within those videos. But in my head, I used to have a bit of a rule that when I'm talking to the collective, the general, not collective, the general, not the individual, just I'm putting it out into the world. I felt like it's okay to be more harsh. It's okay to be more, because it's fine. It's not any one person. I don't agree with that anymore because I
Mm,
realize that even though it's not directed to any one person, people watch it and take it personally anyway, right? But anyway, that was my logic back then. But when I was going one to one with people, I really try to understand them and listen to them, active listening, because I have communications training from my background. I used to work in recruitment and sales. And so this is kind of just how I was when I was arguing with people most of the time, that is. And especially if it was some kind of planned out debate, as some kind of pre thing. And as long as they don't fall into some complete and utter nonsense, I keep it pretty on the level. And with the Gideon, I think that's what was going on there. He was quite reasonable. He pranked me at the beginning by
mhm,
pretending to cook meat and then admitted it was an impossible burger. So that was funny.
mhm.
But apart from that, everything was pretty okay. The religious stuff was a bit frustrating, as it always tends to be. That was the part we couldn't really get past. He was just kind of clinging to the religious things. But no, I think it went pretty well. And again, and I was never going to convince him. I knew that. But it's more about the viewers. And if the viewers are saying, if some of or a lot of the viewers are saying, I actually think that you might be a little wrong here to the actual person they subscribe to, that is a win for me because it makes them think. And this is what happened with Charlie Veach. When I debated him, the same thing happened. His audience said, look, we love you. You're right on a lot of stuff, but you're wrong on this one. I'm not even vegan. A lot of people said, I'm not even a vegan, but this guy's making the better points here. And also with the farmer as well that I debated, it kind of, if you are really reasonable and understanding and make your points in that way, it kind of leaves the other person in a position where they struggle to argue, because if they get angry or mean, it makes them look bad. But also because we have such a strong side on our side, and we spend so much time looking into all these things, more than 99.9% of people in the world. There's really not we know there really aren't many or any really strong good points against what we believe.
Right.
And so, the best they can do is say, in my opinion, the best you can do in an argument or a debate with me is simply say, look, you make really good points. You make complete sense. I honestly am going to have to think about this and then take some time to go and think about it. And if you're not going to change or you're going to disagree, it's just going to have to be that you have to admit that I'm wrong, but I'm not willing to change. That's the only way you can come away from an argument with some level of integrity, I think, when it's with a vegan. Because
Yeah.
you're going to try all these different excuses and points, you're probably going to be perceived as the one who lost. Because even a meat eater would look at that and say, objectively speaking, the vegan won, because we know what we're talking about, and the points are so strong. So
Yeah.
yeah, in conclusion, I suppose I don't know. I went off on tangents there, but yeah, I think it was from memory. I think it went relatively well. Yeah.
Yeah, I did too. Obviously, it wasn't going to be a slam dunk just because of how Jadiam was approaching it, unfortunately. Like you
Mm.
said, he did that. He pranked you at the beginning of the interview, which was kind of your point. Like, this was the prank that you should have done all along.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
You could have done an impossible, burger at the restaurant. So, yeah, it's interesting. He did really kind of fall back on like, I'm religious and my God says it's okay.
Mm.
I'll share this with you. I did this interview with a friend of mine. I haven't released it yet. It'll come out in the next few days or so. But he said something just really beautiful to me. I've heard it. I've heard this said in other ways. He's a Christian. And
Right.
he said, we were outside of this slaughterhouse. This guy kept like following us around, and he was talking about, well, I'm, Christian. When he approached them when they went to their vehicle, and he
Right.
said, listen, guy, could you, if Jesus was here, could you take Jesus by the hand, walk him up that hill, up to that slaughterhouse, and be proud of showing him that? Basically, I just thought that was like kind of a beautiful way of saying what we say a lot, like kind of like what Cam says, like, in Christspiracy, when he asks Kip that question, like, how would Jesus kill an animal, that sort of thing.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that Christianity, we keep on kind of getting back to that, but yeah, so I think you did a really effective job on that, and that's one of those areas where it's similar to, I'm not surprised you got pushback from vegans. Remember when Joey did that interview, that debate with Tristan Tate, and people were slamming him? And
Yeah.
I think he sort of went the same route. He tried sort of to meet Tristan where he was at and try to speak more to his audience when he realized that Tristan was kind of dodging. Also,
Mm.
just to, these are difficult situations. Like, you realize you have these opportunities, like,
Mm.
and you're reaching an audience that, like we've alluded to, you can't really hit oftentimes. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just like have a little compassion for people, like if it doesn't go exactly as you expected it to go, like maybe that wasn't even their goal.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think
so
with the yeah, but speaking with the Tristan Tate interview, I think the problem with that was it didn't it didn't go. I don't think it went at all the way that anyone thought it would go.
mhm,
That's the problem. I think Tristan is an advanced debater, and I don't mean that as in like, oh, he's very good. He's a great at argument. He's great at making up really strong arguments. That's not a
mhm,
good debater. A good debater is someone trained in debate, right? And so
mhm,
I think he's done some kind of manipulative debate training, because if you analyze the way he argues, what his main tactic was with Joey, and I think this is what threw him a little bit and would throw any of us, is he took things that seemed like common sense that most people agree, and he made them out to be. So, for example, most people are against factory farming. Most people, meat eater or not, against factory farming. Tristan Tate flipped that on its head and said factory farming is a revolution. It's incredible. It's the height of human ingenuity. And he
mhm,
went through all these reasons it was incredible. That is enough to throw anyone off, because that's not a common, not, never mind, that's not a common thing to say. That is almost unheard of as a
right.
thing to say, right? And so when someone's coming up with things like that, and it seemed like his tactic was take the stuff that the vegan will most likely expect to be like, oh yeah, we agree, right? Disagree with it and support it and come up with something that like sounds convincing. And also at the beginning of the debate as well. I mean, I analyzed the whole thing. If you see, Tristan's kind of pretending that he's not prepared for the debate at all. This is
Mhm,
also a tactic he used. He's going
mhm,
like, oh, I don't really care about this kind of stuff. I mean, you wanted to come here and talk to me, so yeah, we can have a casual chat about it. The guy had clearly prepped. He had clearly done his thinking about factory farming. He had that whole shtick ready to go. He had other
mhm,
stuff to do with the dog argument and the dog debate. He had all that ready to go. It was a masterclass, I think, in
mhm,
distraction and being disingenuous. I think, looking back on it now, especially, and with my, but it's had time to settle, I really do think it was that. And you can't blame Joey for not realizing this was happening, because Tristan was very good at kind of, making Joey feel like they were cool and stuff. And he even gave him compliments and was like, oh, I didn't know you turned your life around. That's really interesting. And
mhm,
that's
mhm.
well done you and stuff like that. That they seemed like buddies, but I don't think Tristan had kind of a buddy attitude in mind. I think that was part of his game. I think he was
Yeah, yeah.
there to dominate. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be his whole thing, like he's trying to do. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
think so.
I give credit to Joey, and Joey, has just been doing amazing work lately.
Of course, yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yes.
just
There's
always.
no reason, by the way, to just to close that point. That all of what I've just said is absolutely no reason at all to give Joey any crap. Sometimes you're going to get into debates with people who are manipulative, and it's not always that you see them manipulating you. It's not. Sometimes you're being trolled or you're being messed with, and you think that the person's actually a nice, honest person. Sometimes, Joey's not manipulative. He's not a liar. He's not. I don't think he's particularly good at being manipulative or lying or deceitful. He's very much what you see is what you get. He wears his heart on his sleeve. If he's angry, you'll see he's angry. If he's sad, you'll see he's sad. Right? This is how he is, and that's a good thing. And so, if it is the case that Joey was messed around with by this guy in public and like that, and that this guy was like being extra manipulative, there's no reason to blame Joey for that and give him crap. So what?
Yeah.
One out of his 1,000 debates didn't go the way that everybody would have wanted, including him. Okay, what about the other 1,000?
Right, right.
Come on, cut him some slack.
Yeah. And you guys have done activism together. I know you guys know each other, right? I
Yeah.
think I saw you doing like the Pignorant. You were there at some of the um, demonstrations surrounding that film. So
Yep.
Joey's
Yep.
someone that I haven't spoken to personally, so I don't have like a sense of him behind the scenes, like what kind of guy he is. But I think just similar to you, there's so much work out there that you can just see who the person is. Doesn't take much. Um, so I sort of alluded to the Rammys. Well, I talked a lot about them already, but I alluded to this moment. I was really struck by this when I was watching this last night. When you got to this point, it was pretty late in the video, and you were doing the unsung heroes, and this was emotional for you. So I don't know if that's going to bring that out of you right now. I don't mean to darken the mood or anything, but I was really struck. You took about 10, 15 seconds where you got choked up talking about this channel on Instagram, which is just the most visible way, but it's called human.cruelties. We should link to that because you really wanted people to go follow this Instagram channel. And well, tell me a little bit about human.cruelties.
Yeah, so this is an investigator who I've known for quite a while, and yeah, our paths have crossed quite a bit. And just through working with this person and understanding what it takes to do this kind of work, and the kind of things this person's had to do as part of this work, truly undercover work I'm talking about here, not only going in places at night. I'm talking about actually working in places, and I've met over the years a lot of people who've done these, and I've heard their stories, and they truly are the unsung heroes. And what I was getting into there was how it's crushingly lonely in that world, because it's the movement can never understand them, because 99% of this movement, the animal movement, is not doing that work. And so it's a very lonely existence. And even with the people that they are friends with and work with, because we all deal with trauma and we deal with our emotions differently, again, it's reassuring to have people around you who understand to some extent, but it's still quite lonely because they don't fully understand how you were dealing with this. It's kind of like if your grandma dies and then someone else comes along and says, "Oh, my grandma died too." It's like, okay, there's some reassurance there, but it's not like it helps you deal with your grandma dying to know that their grandma died, because they're two different people and there's two different, individuals dealing with this, and there'll be emotions that you feel and things that you feel that they don't feel, and there might be some overlap, there might not be. And so when it comes to this work, that there is that element to it as well. So not only does the wider movement not know about them most of the time, they don't support them because they don't know about them. Their work isn't particularly sexy or interesting in the same way an Earthling Ed debate is. So it's not that they're going to get any kind of achievements that way, or public accolades, or big support monetarily or otherwise. And also with or they don't get any of that, and they also don't get a great deal of kind of psychological rest, or I suppose
Right.
kind of recovery from being with people who also do that work, because again, they're all messed up as well, and they're all messed up in all different ways. So it's like these people truly are. I see them as the unsung heroes. They are the strongest people in our entire movement, the most underappreciated and undervalued. And there's no way to fix that because they can't be in the public eye because of the nature of the work they do.
Right.
So it's a catch-22. They need more support and they need more love, but they can't have it because they can't out themselves. And so you've got a channel like Human Cruelties, which is a completely anonymous channel. And yeah, I mean, so I'm getting people go over there and give this person some love if you can. But again, it's difficult to follow that page because it's horrible, and so a lot of people don't want to follow it. They don't want to follow it. They don't want to see those pictures. Again, it's catch-22, but the person can't put personal stuff up there for obvious reasons because then they can't do that work. So that's what I went into in the stream, and I got choked up because it was getting a little deeper into that, and kind of I was realizing a lot of the things I said I was kind of realizing on the spot as well. And it was a little kind of, I was riffing a little bit, like I was just going into it. And then obviously his channel was up in front of me as well. And that also made it worse because then I was really kind of there with that person. I was like, okay. And it was like, oh, damn. Well, now I can't speak. Otherwise everyone's going to hear my voice quivering. So I had to shut up for a couple of seconds. And
which was so moving, honestly, to see. I don't mean to exploit your your emotional moment, but it was really interesting to watch. And so and you had it up on the screen, so we're talking about like just brutal photographs, of course. And and I mean, having like, I'll just speak really generally, like films like Dominion and Earthlings that we recommend to people all the time. I know a ton of people who are deep in the movement, like people like Wayne included, who have not watched all the way through those films, even though they themselves have been in there to these places, seen it up close and personal. So you mentioned that like 99% of the people in the movement aren't doing this work, but probably 99% of the people are like using this work because, when we do cubes, they're showing it on the screens and stuff. So that just goes back to that support that you give to people. Like it really just, it's so sweet, honestly, that you wanted people to just go send this person a message, this anonymous person, just to know, hey, you're appreciated, which is something that I need to do. I followed the page, but I need to send them a message too. I have, had the tasks before of like reviewing footage and sometimes hours and hours of footage. And that's just looking at it from afar, and it can really take a toll over time. You're just like inundated with brutality. So I can only imagine what that is like to be this undercover investigator and also to live this kind of lonely life. One of the guys that I was able to arrange for Wayne to interview was Rich Hardy, who is an undercover investigator. Actually, I discovered through you, David. Because you had him on your channel.
You did,
and that's a guy who was undercover for decades doing investigative work, and finally, I guess, retired and wrote a book, and so now he can talk about it. But that must have been a very lonely existence for decades that he was living.
Definitely.
I mean, what can you do? Like, it's really hard, like this in this line of work. The line of like what you can talk about, like it's like a lot of people I talk about, like it's like what can we say, what can we talk about? It's really hard, even just dealing with family and friends. Like, what can I say? Do y'all want to know what I've been up to for the past like few months or so? Sorry, I can't talk about it. It's a tough thing in the movement, but like it is an honor to be doing this work for animals. But anyway, let's also talk about some of those people. You had Rose Patterson as like kind of the one of the outstanding awards. They just did great stuff on Animal Rising investigations, and you shouted out Wayne from last year and Paul Watson, and it was just cool support. And then the meat flake, or the meat down award went to the guy who pulled the gun on Curtis just a couple of weeks ago. I also did a conversation with Curtis I'm going to release in a few days, and then talking about that. Um, but what a bizarre occurrence. Yeah, so an activist got a gun pulled on them. Curtis was doing a foie gras protest. Um, so yeah, I wonder if you wouldn't mind talking some about India, because I know you did a lot of
Mhm.
activism there, and I know you ended up having some drama in the movement that was very difficult. And I think you've kind of, I don't know if you want to go through some of that, because I know it's probably exhausting for you to re-go over it, but I'd be happy to talk about it if you want to. I know it's part of your story. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, you mean about like Western activists. You mean that
yeah,
drama
yeah,
and what
like
they kind of
yeah, with like
Yeah, so
Save and yeah.
oh yeah, all okay, yeah. No, it's kind of old news now, but it was
Mhm.
bad at the time. We did work in India. We were working for Animal Safe Movement, and they wanted to get more of like a foothold in India because there was lots of activists across India, lots of different organizations, doing lots of different things, but people didn't really do vigil work. And they Save Movement thought, well, I think maybe there's a space for this. Maybe there are people in India who would like to do vigils and they'd like to work with an international organization. The problem is we don't have really a way to kind of build a reputation there and build trust, and we don't know anybody that we can trust or like know well enough right now to pay to go and build that. So they said, I had just been to India on a holiday and stuff like before I started getting into full-time activism. So I'd made friends and I already knew people in some parts of the country, and then my partner and I said, okay, well, we could go if you want, if you think. They said, yeah, actually, that's a good idea. Why don't you go and build those relationships you already had, and let's try and get the Save movement going. And it was really successful. All we did was bounce around to many, many, many cities, and we immediately tried to contact the locals. And we worked together to put together some workshops and some activism events. And it wasn't us kind of like leading as some people thought it was, like, oh, these people going over to India trying to lead the movement. It wasn't that at all. It was connecting with local activists, and then they were the ones that were leading and saying, "Oh, we're going to set up this event. We're going to get everyone to come." We just turned up. They were incredible. By the way, Indian activists, by far to this day, the most passionate, dedicated activist I've ever come across.
Wow.
I mean, in our world back in the West, you get someone like a Joey who's really really dedicated. And everyone looks, oh my god, and like there's a reason Joey is so well known. It's because he's so dedicated and he's so intense. And he's in India. Everyone, practically every activist is a Joey in terms of
Wow.
intensity. It's crazy. These people dedicate their entire lives and everything to activism, and they're completely unknown. They're not doing it. They don't do any social media. They don't, and that's bad. They should be doing social media. But there are people who've been working there for decades. Some of the most committed people you'll ever meet, and they do it literally. It's 100% for animals. There's no social media. There's no nothing. They don't need thanks. They don't need pats on the back or anything. It's crazy. Honestly, it's crazy.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it was very easy to. In most cities, it was very easy to connect and pitch them the Save movement. Hey, how does this sound to you guys? You interested or not? Some places said no. A lot of places said yes. And then now the Save movement there is really established. They've got regular events. They've got groups all over the country. And that's partly thanks to us, but also mostly thanks to the people who took over and, the locals who made it a thing and said, right, we are going to make the Save movement a thing in India. We think it's great. And then they just took it into the future and smashed it. So well done to them, smashing it still. But while we were over there, though, unfortunately, it's all, I don't know what it is. Like, so everyone over there pretty much, I mean, out of the, like, let's say, I don't know, say we met 100 people, 99, 98 people were like really happy that some people had come over there to try and kick all these things off. And they were very thankful for the advice and information that we exchanged and stuff. Maybe two people weren't happy because they were a little, let's say, racist, because Indians can be
Let's say
racist too,
racist.
okay? And they
Yeah,
weren't too
yeah.
happy they're taking advice from white people. It wasn't anything to
Uh-huh.
do with it was just a thing. There's some history in India. I understand it. Whatever, right? Still racist
Mhm.
though. I'm not saying it's right, but I understand it. Okay, fine, no
Right,
worries.
right.
Two people out of 100, let's say. But in the West, unfortunately, some people started like a mini campaign against us and the Save movement because they said what we were doing was a form of colonialism.
Mm.
And we were basically, they were saying that we're white people trying to get Indians to do things our way, and this was kind of their claim. It was a complete misunderstanding of what we were doing. Like I explained to you what we were doing. It was an information exchange. It was collaborating with locals, and giving them this, like, hey, we have this thing, this safe movement idea. You were connected with an international community from all over the world. These are the events that you do. You can get support if you want to do it. There's financial support for the equipment, signs and stuff. If you think this is a good idea, we're here to start a group with you. We can give you everything you need, and then you start off. And we're leaving in 3 days, so it's like we're not here to run the group. You need to run the group, and then if not, no worries. Keep it in mind for future. That's what we were doing. Now, I personally wouldn't class that as colonialism. But, I mean, who am I
That's
to
because you're
say?
colonialist scum. No.
So that was that, yeah. But that was the drama. That was like the main kind of movement-wide drama. Anyway, it was a real shame because it really put a sour taste on something that was very good. It was very good. It was
Yeah.
building connections between between Western movement and the Indian movement, which how can that ever be bad?
Right, right,
Like
right.
what? That's crazy. No one
Yeah,
was forced to do anything, and it was all, like I said, it was all a very take it or leave it. You don't need to do anything if you don't want to.
right.
Obviously, this is your movement. We're here in your movement. We're just giving you some new ideas and a possibility. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I wish I had had like my YouTube, and I wish it was like 30,000 times bigger at that time, and I could have backed you. Because like again, it's just like you're out there for all to see who you are. Like
Mm.
you know, you're a good guy. It's very plain to see. So like people putting like ill intentions on you is just ridiculous. Um,
It's been done. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much good you do or how careful you are. It's unfortunately just kind of part of being out in the public. Um, it is what it is. And by the way, this was all back in 2018, 2019. We're talking, this is like ancient history to me. But I will say one thing before we continue, just real quick. Like, I'm not saying the people who were making those claims were somehow like horrible, bad people. I assume that most of them probably had good intentions, and they were concerned, maybe they were concerned about, to them it looked like that was what was happening. All right, fine. And they were concerned about the bad optics, maybe, or the, I don't know. I guess their concern was the local people, as if we were somehow hurting them or something like that. But I would,
yeah.
and so I don't think these people are all evil or bad. But all I would call for is that if you're ever seeing something that you think is, bad from an activist or something, like, or in this kind of vein, spend a bit more time thinking about it before jumping to really harsh conclusions, especially if you see somebody else who's made some story about it, tagging the activist. This person did this.
Yeah.
Take a breather, hold back judgment, research it, maybe DM the person they're talking about before you join in that campaign of
Hmm.
denouncing them. That's all I would say, And I think
Hmm.
if everyone did that, 9 out of 10 of these silly campaigns wouldn't get off the ground, because the one person who thinks it's really like, oh my God, this is a thing we need to campaign for, wouldn't get anywhere, because the 9 other people who saw it would say, I DM'd the person, and I've DM'd all other people, and I've figured out that this isn't true. So it just wouldn't go anywhere.
Right.
A
Yeah.
bit more due diligence for these things, I would say, is what we need.
Exactly. And sort of err on the side, and this is how I look at animal rights activists. Like, I just feel like it's a selfless thing. So I'm not saying that activists don't make mistakes and that we're all perfect people or anything like that. But I would just, when someone makes a mistake, and I've had my frustrations with a lot of
Mm,
people personally and people like that I've seen in public, um, but I feel they're good people. Like
mm,
they're working, in an animal rights movement. They're trying to make the world a better place. So when people assume that those people are, bigoted in some way, like it's possible, but I just try to like think the best of them from the starting point and then just try to go from there. And that's how I would
mm.
have approached you had I, and this all happened. So I didn't realize how long ago this was. It was basically like when I was turning vegan. So
Oh,
I,
right. Okay.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I've been vegan 7 years. So not that long
Okay.
really. And
Okay.
So
Yeah, I
yeah.
spoke about this in my. You probably got this from the talk I did in Luxembourg, right, where I mentioned this story. And it's, so for anyone watching who wants to know more about what I'm talking about here and other things that happened also throughout my life as an activist in a similar vein, and what I learned from them, go to the International Animal Rights Conference YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
IARC YouTube. I did a talk
Yeah.
in Luxembourg just last year on this topic of, you know, how to unify the movement, vegan unity, and, you know, the issues I've come up against. And this story, yeah, this story was one of the stories. There's some details I've missed out here because I didn't want to get too deep into it. But in that video, I go into a little more detail on what specifically caused the campaigning. Like, what there was one action, there was one event that caused the campaign to even start in the first
Mm.
place, and it's quite funny. But I'll save that. We'll let people can go over there and watch that for that little
Well, and
snippet.
also it's to your credit that you still went, that you're still going, is what I'm saying. Because
Oh yeah.
you know, this would have been like something that someone, it would be very understandable for somebody to just drop out of them and be like, fuck this, I'm not dealing with this. You
This is
know.
this compared to the other things that I mentioned in that talk. This is a minor thing. There were
Hmm.
far worse things that have happened. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
this is kind of what I mentioned earlier on with saying that I have an unofficially diagnosed myself with ADD. I think that I'm too stubborn and too kind of, I don't think obsessed is the right word because that's irrational, but I'm too focused. I'm too dedicated and driven to stop, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Even though like everything that happened, yeah, you were totally right. I think if I wasn't this way, if my brain didn't work this way, I might have dropped out years ago and said, you know what, like I can't take all this anymore, because people can be really bad,
Yeah.
unfortunately, both in the vegan and outside the vegan world, especially
Yeah.
online. It's very hostile. But I'm too stubborn to stop, to be
Yeah.
honest with
Good.
you.
I'm glad to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, like I also just a real quick point about this, like just remember that David is a human being.
We
He
all,
is,
yeah, remember we all are.
yeah,
This is the thing
yeah,
that people seem to forget, especially
right.
with the internet. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like he is flesh and blood. He feels things. You know, he's, you know, not made of steel, even though he's a very tough guy. I know. And I bring that up because like we've had, you know, like you featured on your channel just a couple weeks ago with like, you know, the gun on Curtis,
Mm,
people throwing drinks at Tash, punching Jack. Yeah, like
yeah.
these are people. Like they're not caricatures on the internet. They're not memes. You know, whatever. So, and you talked about the activists in India, and
Mm,
saying that a lot of them aren't on social media, YouTube. Still, you've introduced me, I'm pretty sure it was you that introduced me to at least three activists in India: Soy Theist, Arvind, animal activist, and Voice of Vegans, who are
right.
all amazing, amazing. Amazingly confident speakers too. And
Hmm.
I think, you know, Arvin seems to have like the biggest channel. He
Yep.
was doing for a long time, he was doing like you know, a lot of classroom speaks, you know, like
Yeah.
very instructional stuff. He's great. And yeah, so those are three channels that you can check out.
Yeah. Check out Altab Hossein as well. He's a
Ooh,
Muslim
okay.
vegan, and
Oh yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
deals with a lot of deals with a lot of that side of things. He gets a lot of death threats as well from speaking up, and he's not getting death threats because he's saying horrible things either. His messaging is so peaceful, but yeah, people want to kill him because they see him as challenging Islam. So.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, like here's some other stuff that you taught me was
Mm.
when you were doing your videos about like Sadhguru. And
Hmm.
so first, like you introduced me to Thich Nhat Hanh, which was
Mm.
beautiful to listen to and hear his words. It's such beautiful words about veganism. So sad that he passed. He was very old, of
Mm.
course, but he passed a few years ago. But yeah, you introduced me to that. But yeah, I know that you were kind of calling out the hypocrisy of Sadhguru, and his followers just inundated you. So you had that, but yeah, that was another instance where you were reaching, you know, this different audience. So you've been very
Yeah.
savvy about, you know, doing that.
Yeah, the Sadhguru thing was that again was a while back, but he's from what I understand that some people did mention that he's more upfront these days about promoting kindness to animals. Some people
Hmm.
mentioned that he's maybe kind of adjusted a little. I don't know if I had any part in that, but I mean the videos I made on him were super viral, so you never know. But yeah, the guy is a charlatan. This is the problem. And for everything that he says that is good, there's good advice for sure. A lot of them are ripped off from other
Mm,
philosophers and other like ancient kind of speakers and messages, which is one thing. The other stuff I'm not going to get into why the guy's a charlatan all the way through, but there's videos about him online. The vegan, suppose not vegan stuff, but the animal related stuff was one example of how he is completely inconsistent as some kind of spiritual leader. Very long story short, the guy goes out preaching about kindness, compassion, empathy, and all these things. And he's supposed to be the kind of guy like he tells you what's really happening, what's how to really take control of your life and how to really break away from all of the things that make you sad and stuff like that. That's kind of his whole vibe. Yet when he was challenged on the dairy industry, he literally stood on stage and just mocked this person, this
mhm.
woman who was challenging him on the dairy industry. Just everything she said, he made jokes that really just didn't make any sense. Like good joke's a good joke. His jokes didn't make sense, but yet obviously
Mhm.
everybody laughs and claps because he's a god man, right? Because they think
Mhm.
he's literally a god. They think he's actually supernatural. So they're all thinking he's brilliant. And that really exposed him as just another human, and just another human trying to
Yeah.
make himself appear to be godlike. Because he would have been more convincing if he'd have said that, oh no, we shouldn't do all these things to animals. That would have been more breaking the mold and more convincing that, oh, maybe this guy is the real deal because he's saying controversial stuff about animals too that people don't want to hear. But he just towed the line because he knows that that's an area where he'll lose a lot of money if he starts telling people they have to completely vegan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a real disappointment.
It was, and it was like kind of bullying this young woman and
Yeah,
who was standing there in a crowd. And this happens all the time if you try to do like these speak outs. I know you had just recently done a short about that guy who was what's that conservative guy? Yeah, you
Charlie
just did
Kirk.
it. Charlie Kirk. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. And that guy got up in front of Charlie Kirk and tried to argue for, compassion to animals, and of course was surrounded by all these conservative guys all laughing at him and making fun. It's really hard to stand up in these audiences. So people like
yeah,
that, deserve a load of credit, honestly, for putting themselves out there,
for
like
sure.
that
Yeah,
young woman did in front of Sadhguru. Yeah,
yeah,
that must have been
definitely.
intimidating. She probably was a supporter of his too. I don't know, but she probably looked up to him and wanted guidance of some sort or to challenge his views on something.
Probably. Yeah,
Um,
you're probably right.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's just another example of sort of the really interesting stuff that I've learned from your channel. So since you've been taking like a critical look back at your activism, and I'm not asking you to be self-aggrandizing, but what are the things that you're really proud of? Like any specific moments that you're super proud of?
I mean, I think I've been writing on Substack quite a lot, and um, I'm quite happy with the kind of progress that I feel like I've been making progress in my thoughts. And I guess there's not been really any public moment that I'm really proud of this moment. I'm more kind of happy about. I feel like I'm on the road to a place where I could make real difference with the short years that I've got left on this planet. Which I don't know. How old are you, mate? By the way,
I'm 40.
40, right? So
Mm,
we're more or less in the same boat. I'm 35, and you and I only have how many good years? Good years, I'm talking where we could. I mean, I guess 80 is the new 60, right? I don't know. The
yeah.
80, but like, if we're both very lucky and we have good genes and our bones don't fall to pieces, maybe let's say we're good until like 70. Let's say, like, let's be realistic. Probably 80, maybe we could push 80, maybe, but still doing activism. But then I think probably have some health stuff at that point. Energy goes lower. You need more naps in the day, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. So like probably so you're looking at like 40, 50 years, 45, 50 years, right? Okay, fine. Within those 45 to 50 years though, you're going to sleep a lot of that, and you're going to have stuff that you got to do outside of activism on top of that. You're probably going to be having some kind of family situation. Maybe if you don't have kids, well, okay, that's fine, but there'll be other family commitments that you'll have. There'll be time that you spend eating and exercising and doing things to take, leisure activities so you can refocus on the work again because you need breaks. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. When you calculate it all out, you don't actually have that much time in terms of working time left, right? At this point, even when you're born, you don't have that long to make an actual difference. I mean, how many conscious years do you have? I mean, you probably come into life where at a point where you can start making real changes, like 10, 11, maybe, if you're lucky enough to have the kind of knowledge at that age to. So what I'm saying is it's a short life. And I suppose the thing I'd say I'm most proud of or most happy about is that I feel like I'm now I'm finally starting to reach the things and the areas and the mind, the headspace where I feel like I could actually make real changes before I die, like actual changes, not only promoting veganism and hoping people will change and go vegan, right? But actually changes in other places that require different approaches. My language and the way I speak, encouraging not only people to go fully animal free in what they're eating and to go vegan, but also encouraging people to make efforts that lead to that, and not only giving a black and white message, also giving a message of, these are the changes we need to make, move towards animal free, move towards the vegan options, start making those changes now, and like kind of tapping into these things, and that along with the other stuff I'm doing, it gives me a sense of that these things are way more tangible and way more achievable and will have a way bigger impact over the years left, right? Quite a controversial thing to say, but I kind of, one of the things I realized that a lot of people probably ain't gonna like, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's, I don't make the facts are as they are. It's very, very difficult to get somebody to go vegan. It's very, very difficult. That's why there aren't many of us, right? If it were easy, everyone would be vegan. It's not easy. It is far, far easier in comparison to get somebody to commit to, let's say, consuming 50% or 60% less animal products per year, right? That's a far easier thing to aim at. Somebody would be more likely to stick to that, most likely for decades, because it's easier, isn't it? For somebody who is really, really loves the way they eat and loves the way they live, it's going to be far easier for them to make that massive reduction and stick to that maybe until they die. Whereas, as we already see with people who switch to animal-free eating, even people who go fully vegan, we do have a relatively low sign-up rate, and we do have a relatively high dropout rate. And that's no fault of the plant-based diet, and it's no fault of the vegan movement. It's the same reason there's a high dropout rate from the gym. Society is built for you to sit in front of Netflix and order food. It's not built to force you to go out and work out. Society is built for you to stuff your face with animal products. It's not built for you to be a vegan. Everyone around you and all the things you'll see and all the most convenient stuff is not vegan. And so we can expect a high dropout rate, right? So my point is, what's better? Is it better that somebody goes vegan, actually vegan, and agrees with the ethics and maybe sticks with it for 5 years before they buckle under the pressure of society and turn their back on animals, and then maybe go the polar opposite direction because the vegan movement attacks them and they'll never be vegan ever again? Or is it better if somebody makes a monstrous reduction to the consumption of animal products, which is obviously that's the biggest problem that we have, is animal agriculture for food. For animals, that's the biggest issue. And then they stick with that forever because they can manage that. And there's no black and white thinking here. It's not like if one day they eat 70%, it doesn't mean that they're going to give up and just, okay, screw it, I'll just eat meat every day. That's not going to happen, because there's no, do you know what I mean? So it's these kinds of, so I suppose that's what I'm most happy with. It's not that I think I'm right on all these things, but it's breaking away from this breaking out of the kind of box that I was in, that there's only one way to do it. There's only one way to change the world. There's only one, and there isn't only one way. There's so many tools in the toolbox for us to create change for animals, and not all of them are going to necessarily feel good. Like, I don't feel good about somebody reducing. It doesn't make me feel good. But when animals are concerned, if they do that for the rest of their life, that's a good thing. So it's not about how I feel, right? It's about the impact it has on the world for animals. So yeah, that I'd say is what I'm most happy about, kind of coming to this way of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on that some in your video about Peter Dinklage, announcing that I ate chicken on the set of Game of Thrones or something like that. Yeah,
Mm.
I can hear it, and I assume there's going to be a lot of people that hate what you just said. Like you said,
Oh
some
yeah,
vegans might
I
not
know.
like
I'm
that.
aware of it. I don't
Yeah,
particularly like it myself. It's not like I'm super happy about this. You
right.
realize I have been, just to be clear, I'm a deeply, deeply passionate person when it comes to animals. My mum raised me my entire life showing me that cows and pigs are just like dogs and they should be loved and cared for. Chickens the same. Like I've been raised with this deep, loving compassion for animals, and my heart is broken on a daily basis when I see what happens to them.
Mhm.
And you know, and so it's not like I don't care. I would argue that I have a deeper connection than the vast majority of vegans have. No, not it's a competition, but I'm just saying
Mhm.
this is a lifelong passion for me. And so
Yeah,
it doesn't, I don't particularly feel good about saying what I said. Isn't, like I said, I'm not particularly comfortable with it, but we have to look past what we like and what we think should be good and what should work, and start looking at what does work instead and what will make
right.
change. And I'm seeing more and more, things that suggest that, these different types of messages, these different types of angles can lead to the same goal and get us there potentially even faster. And
Yeah,
this is what this is what we've got to look into. We can't just go off our feelings. We've got to look at what the experts are saying, right? And
right, right.
I'm somewhat of an expert in some areas, but I'm not. I don't probably don't know more than somebody who studied this for 20 years. And we have those people in the movement, and they're all saying something similar.
Yeah.
So it's a good idea to maybe hear them out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And someone that's been doing it for so long, like you have, and you have all this experience to sort of back up what you say.
Mm.
Yeah. So the reason why I said, like people are going to hate that, I just want to dispel a few things about you, David, that, I think most of my audience will know about this, but David's an abolitionist. He wants all animals to be free. So if you're thinking like, oh, David's become like an animal welfarist, like, well, like it's practicality is what you're talking about. Also, David is not a pussy. So this is not about backing down. David's gone hard on people for years. Like he said, he's looked at that critically to see whether or not that was effective or not. But it's not coming from a place of weakness. It's coming from a place of practicality. Yeah, and whether or not you agree with that approach or not, because I don't know. Even me, I have to think about it. I
Mm.
wonder. Um, but it makes a lot of sense, and you're someone that we should obviously listen to. Um, and I
I mean,
think
it's
like,
it's not even just me. It's like I'm just look. I'm doing my thing. It's not like I think other people should do what I'm doing.
mhm,
If you don't agree, then you do things your own way.
mhm,
But and I don't. I mean, I don't see much of a problem with that. The stuff I mentioned earlier on about not being convinced of these other ways of being, and that's fine. If someone says that to me, I'm not convinced of the way you're doing it. That's fine. When you cross the line, though, is when you would question my integrity, when you would question whether I care for animals or not, when you would say, as some people have said, that you've become a joke, you're not a real
mhm.
activist, you're not even a vegan. This is when you start to cross lines, and
Yeah,
this is now unproductive. It's an unproductive attack, and it's an insult. Because an insult is when you're going after someone's character and you're going after who they are. A criticism or a debate on something is where you have some kind of aim to come to some conclusion about the truth or to discover something about how somebody thinks. And if we're doing that, that's fine. Let's do that. But yeah, a lot of unfortunately, a lot of people in general, but especially within our movement, it doesn't seem like a lot of people know the difference or how to differentiate between insults and I don't know, just disagreements really.
yeah.
And I wish we could lean more towards just
I know there's
productively disagreeing.
exactly there is something about this movement where it's like if we disagree on like one thing, all
Mm.
of a sudden we're enemies, and that's
Yeah,
just
and it's
kind of ridiculous.
what makes it more ridiculous, even it makes it even crazier, is that if someone hears this now, they might turn on me and say, you know what, oh my god, screw this guy and all those things. Yet they'll go out on the street tomorrow and play nice with somebody who pays for the worst things to happen to animals 3 times a day or more. Why are
Right.
they playing nice? Because they want to convince them. They want to bring them over to their side. yet I'm the devil. See
Hmm.
what I mean? You know,
Yeah.
practically speaking, with my actions and my life, I am, and you too, animals would see us as angels, right?
Hmm.
And so even if we disagree on things, keep that in mind that to animals, you are a hero. Even if you disagree on strategy, you are a hero if they could understand the concept of a hero.
Hmm.
And so you deserve a little bit more leeway and give the same leeway that you would give to a meat eater on the street who's just learning about these things to the person stood next to you in the protest. Like you got to allow for a little bit of disagreement without it just automatically being that this person's now evil and they should be ousted. I won't work with them anymore. But then I'll
Hmm.
play nice and I'll smile and I'll happily have a nice conversation with a meat eater. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
We've got to have a bit more patience.
Well, one of the reasons why I knew about like the save drama and stuff is because I have
Right.
this friend really close to me, like my best friend, and we would meet up all the time, and he loves your content as well. And we would talk about you and like, wow, it's ridiculous. Like David had to deal with all this stuff, but one of the things that he told me that he liked to do, and I sort of adopted this for a while, was like because this was when you were doing your Face the Facts Friday. So he was like, you know what I do? Like, I'll just like on Thursdays, I go to Cranky Vegan and I watch the 3 Minute Thursdays or whatever. I get his take, and then on Fridays
Mhm.
I get David Rams's take. Now, um, I'm not throwing shade on Cranky Vegan. I'm just saying I disagree with a lot of his takes too, but I do learn from
Right.
him. Um, that's not shade on Cranky, but that's the point that I'm making. Like I get like news from this source that oftentimes disagree with or the approach,
Yeah.
and then yeah, and I don't want to cancel Cranky because I disagree with him on something.
Right.
So yeah. But that's just where it's just been. I've seen the movement just completely self-destruct in
Mhm.
almost irredeemable ways where it's almost broken apart, and it's really to the credit of people like you for sticking with it through all that. Like I said, through the save drum and all that. Like uh my buddy Wayne has dealt with some stuff too. He's gone through it. I'm just really grateful for your stick to itiveness, for your ADD. Appreciate you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, I mean, we'll see if it is that or not. If it's not that, then I guess I'm just a completely stubborn individual, just refuse to give up.
Yeah.
It's yeah, maybe it's not that. Who knows? But yeah, no,
Well,
I appreciate you saying that anyway, and yeah, and I'm with you right there with you. I appreciate everyone who's been through the crap and hasn't given in because it is tough when it comes from all angles.
yeah.
It's not pleasant, but it's we have to keep doing it because no one else is going to do it. It's the thing,
Yeah.
right? It's not
Well, as
like
I
there's a sorry, I was to say it's not like there's a surplus of activists. You know what I mean? If you step out, chances are no one's going to replace you. At
right,
least
right.
not anytime bloody soon. Anyway, and getting the experience and the things you've learned, getting somebody else to that level is going to be really hard because we have such small numbers. If we
Yeah.
could keep that in mind, I think people need to really keep that in mind.
Well, in
Animals
the
really do keep
position,
going.
I mean, the position that I sit in, having a conversation with you, David, like I am so grateful. I love that I'm having the conversation, but it does speak to the smallness of our movement because
Right.
you have this great success. To me, I feel like I'm kind of like this no name. Obviously I've made great connections with cool people, but even that to me, like sometimes when I'm sitting in a room with Wayne, I'm like, I should not have ascended to like being in this room with all these amazing people. Like it's just it does speak to how small the numbers are that you can just suddenly be having a conversation with some of the figureheads of the movement.
The thing is,
um
I'll just comment on that real quick because I don't. I understand where you're coming from, and I've been there too, and I get what you're saying. But it's the only limiting factor that I think that should be involved with somebody deciding whether or not to go on someone else's channel is it's about time and time spent versus kind of outcomes. Now, like if there is a really 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 tiny channel and somebody is currently working on some big project and the interview wouldn't it would be a massive time commitment that they don't have and it wouldn't result in particularly anything to help the project, it's a reasonable thing to say, look, I don't think this is a good idea for me right now. We'll do it another time when I have time. Now, the other side of that is looking at someone and saying, just they're not important enough for me to talk to. That should never happen within this movement, because this movement is not for us to position ourselves as important or famous or celebrity, and therefore other people don't deserve our time. No one should be doing that in our movement, because it's not a movement about us and like and our crap. It's about animals. If you have any fame, it's off the back of animals. If you are some kind of celebrity,
Yeah.
it's off the back of animals. Now, there's no problem with that at all, but you always need to remember the reason that you even have success. And then therefore, if somebody else who wants to fight for animals or is fighting for animals wants to work with you, and there better be a damn good reason not to, whether it be, like I say, just literal time constraints, or whether it be, I don't know, whatever it is, fine, good reason not to. But it should with what you're kind of alluding to there is like, oh, how am I speaking to you? Like because like you're so successful in here, and kind of like it's alluding to that, like, oh, I'm not important enough. That's complete nonsense.
Yeah.
Like we shouldn't be. We're all on the same plane, right? And like I said, there should be a damn good reason not to work with somebody else. And if you don't have one, then be honest with yourself as a creator, and like, oh, you just think you're better. Get that out of your head right now, because that's ridiculous. Right.
Yeah.
That's how I see that. I think.
Yeah.
I think most people would agree on that. I don't think we have people who think they're like. Probably not many people who think they're like better than others or anything like that. But there are some. I bet. I bet there are some though.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. And yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And what I was just alluding to was just the size of our movement. Like just in the relatively short time, like I've been vegan 7 years, just a relatively short time that I'm in the conversation with a lot of like really big names. It just speaks to how little our movement is. That's the point that I'm making. Since I've learned so much from you in your channel, I wonder if there's any insight, like how is it that you have your finger so on the pulse, like just all these areas that I haven't seen other people do, like the Rich Hardy conversation, like like knowing about what's going on with Sadhguru. Like, how is it that you're keeping tabs on so much?
That's an interesting question. I think it's probably partly to do with what I said earlier about that I'm really, really analytical with people. And again, I will reiterate, it's not that I see people as like, numbers or anything like that. It's more that I'm always kind of looking to understand what makes people tick and what's going on with them and the things they're doing and the things they're interested in, and applying it to myself and my work and applying it to others' work. So for example, with the Sadhguru video, I saw my good friend Seb Alex did a video about Sadhguru. I watched the video and I was angry. And I was like, this guy is a total... I want to do a video about this, actually, because I actually think I got something different to say to Seb. And our videos overlapped in some ways, but then they didn't in other ways. And I put mine up, and and lo and behold, it did really well. And so this is it's not just like a YouTuber mindset. It's the mindset I've had for a long time. Same with Rich Hardy. So I went to a conference over in Czech Republic and the Kerr conference, that was it. And sat watching this guy, Rich Hardy, is giving a talk, and I'm like, wow, this guy's done a lot of stuff. This is crazy. And he's got this book. I was like, okay, I'm inspired by this guy. I want to interview him. So this is how I'm always thinking. Like I see someone on stage, I see that they're saying things that are really interesting, and my mind doesn't stop there. I think, okay, this is interesting. They've got something that I'm interested in. What can I do with it? Right, I can do a podcast, and it's not for him. When I first make this click, it's not necessarily that I'm thinking, oh, he'll benefit from my podcast. It's very much that, oh, I want him on my podcast because I like him, and I want to show people this guy, and obviously he benefits from that. But this is this is how I'm thinking all the time, and I would never. 100% of the time, my ideas benefit other people. Put it that way. I'm never coming up with things that would do bad on somebody else. Like 100% of the time, I'm thinking, oh, I want him on my podcast, and then secondly, and he probably gets some support from that too. So it's a win-win.
Right.
So I think that's you touched on something really interesting. I never thought about advising people this, but yeah, if you are trying to build social media, if you are trying to build anything, this is a really, really good mindset to get in, is to meet people and be present and enjoy their company, but also keep very sharp to the possibilities and the opportunities that they could be putting out there for you. Because it's not about exploiting people. It's about the more you listen, the more you'll see opportunities for both parties to benefit through ideas that you have through connecting them with other people or connecting them with yourself, or and the possibilities are endless, but you've got to look for them. I've met so many people within our movement who I've connected with people that they could have easily connected themselves, but they haven't been thinking that way, you know?
Right, right.
And they've really helped them, you know, like really took them to another level. And it's like, you could have done this yourself. You got to switch that, take that little switch in your brain, put it on, and start being more observant and active listening, and your opportunities will start coming, and you'll start having like great ideas and great connections, and it'll all start happening.
Right. And then ultimately the animals will win. Like that's
That's
the
it.
hope anyway.
Well, that's
Yeah,
it. That's absolutely it. Yeah, that's it.
yeah. I mean, because with Rich Hardy, like yeah, and it's interesting because same like when I invited you on, it's because I really want to talk to David. I love David, you know, and it's funny because like I'm sure that anybody like the few people who have like probably like watched a lot of my interviews and listened to a lot of my interviews will notice that I spend a lot of time, probably like maybe too much time, just praising the person I'm interviewing. That's because I genuinely really like the people that I've invited onto my program. If I really didn't like them, I probably wouldn't invite them on. But in the case of Rich Hardy, like you mentioned, like you wanted to have him on, but it also has this tangible benefit. He's written this amazing book that's very
Yep.
informative. I mean, it's like when you're in the animal rights movement, you feel like you've heard it all. Like, you know, like
Mm.
but that book taught me a lot that I didn't know about, like rabbit farming, reindeer
Hmm.
farming. And that's why we had him on Wayne's, because Wayne was talking about Christmas. And I was like, oh, there's this book about reindeer farming. We could get Rich Hardy on. And it's funny because you mentioned like some of just not having the mindset for that. Well,
Right.
Wayne, when I joined his team, he has a great team around him. This is not a slight on any of the team. Team had built up this massive Instagram. There were loads of messages from people in our Instagram that had just not been responded to because they
Right.
didn't have the time or weren't paying attention to. But some of
Yep.
them were from like massive people that wanted to work with us, help us, and they had just gotten lost in the shuffle. Very
Right.
understandable, but
Yeah.
that was just kind of like where that was my benefit. Like where I brought benefit to Wayne's team was just like I consume all this YouTube content. Wayne's busy. He doesn't like I know all these people, vegan gays and David, and we'll get all these people on the channel. You know, we'll have these great conversations. Um, so yeah, it's just it's obviously the kind of the point that you made is just sort of paying attention. Like that's what you do. It sounds like you just pay attention. You're like really on it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think paying attention and yeah, just paying attention and looking. You got to be active. You got to be actively making connections, connect the dots all the time, and just look for all these opportunities to connect the dots. And you'll just, this is what we need. I think, yeah, this is a really important lesson for the movement overall. If we're all doing that, if we're all just listening intently and connecting dots for each other all the time, can you imagine how much more successful and unified we would be? Can you imagine how much more amazing relationships we'd have with each other if we were always doing this for each other? Because I mean, I think it would be incredible, but instead, I think, I mean, we have a lot of good community, we have a lot of good connections, and we have some people who do that. We also have a lot of people who are very isolated and don't want to work with others and don't do this and do the opposite of that. And yeah, I think if we all made more efforts to be that a little more like that, I think we'd have a lot of success for sure.
Yeah. Well, you know, we've mentioned the Rich Hardy book. I like to ask the people
Hmm.
that I have on, like, what are some like books and things that they've drawn inspiration from, be they from the animal rights movement or outside the animal rights movement? And that doesn't have to be even books. It could be TV shows or whatever. But what are some of those things for you?
Draw inspiration from. So I liked the book. How to, what was it? I can't remember the title. I remember there was a movie that was made fun of the title. That's what's coming to my head right now.
Mm,
How to win friends and influence people? I think it was called. It's from like
mm,
1930. That's a really good book if you want to learn about how to be a good member of anything, group, good member of society, good member of your family, good business person. It's a book that it's not about manipulation or anything like that. It's weird. It's kind of just how to be a very good person and reap the benefits of that within your community. So, and it's a really cool book. I've not read it in some years. I think I'll reread it because it was really good. So that's really good about community. If you want to learn communication skills, you want to learn how to be an influential person that people want to hear more from you. They love listening to you talk, and that's the book for that. Not that I think people love to listen to me talk, but if you want to try and figure out how to do that, that's the book. And I it's a good thing to work out if you're an activist because you want people to listen to you. So that's a good one. I don't think of other influential books really. I'm trying to there's been some, but I don't really think about this very often.
Well, another thing to ask, and just to add on to that question, is just like, and you don't have to answer this because it's just asking you about your personal life, but what are when you're not doing the animal activism, what's your escape? What do you get into?
Yeah, a couple of things. So I play guitar, but right now I don't have my guitar here. It's kind of sucked because sometimes you just get an itch for it. But I'll have to pick up another one, try and find a cheap one. I really like American football. I watch a lot of American football, and I used to play, and I've recently got my ball back, so I've been practicing throwing again. I used to play quarterback, so I've been seeing if I still got it. And
nice.
yeah, I went out, see if I still had it. The arm, turns out I do. Quite happy. It's not as smooth as it was from some years back, but it works. It can still throw a dart. I can still get it pretty powerful, so that's good.
You're quite tall, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm 6'2".
6'2", yeah. So you'd be
good. That's a cool thing to do. And the other thing, I'm getting back into also. I used to be in a very heavy band, like a metal band.
Nice.
I did harsh vocals, and I'm still really interested in harsh vocals, and so but I did it in a very unsustainable way back then, all these years ago, and it didn't cause any damage, but it also didn't really help my throat. So I've been working on some new techniques with that and seeing if I can still do it, and potentially looking into doing some recordings. And that's probably the main things that I'm up to. Right. Also, I watch series, watching The Sopranos. That's a big thing. Yeah, getting through that. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
That'd be cool. I can't wait to hear your metal. If you ever put any metal out, that'd be amazing.
I think so. The thing is, these days, my biggest thing that held me back from I would have been doing this years ago, but I'm not. I'm a good songwriter in terms of I can write lyrics. I'm quite confident in I can write good lyrics. I've done it. I did it a lot, and I can still do it. I just pours out of me. I'm quite. I'm in touch with how I feel, and I can put it on paper pretty easily and rhyme things and stuff. So I'm happy with that. But I can't write music. Just can't get it. I just never learned how to do it, and I don't know how to piece parts of a song together and stuff. So I was always stuck there. But now there's AI. There's this thing called Suno.com, I think it is. And I've been using it, and you just literally, you put your prompt in, you're like, write me a metal song that has this kind of feeling, and it just does it. And it is insane. And so now I can get the music all done for me without paying a penny, and I can do my own vocals on top. So I think I'm going to do it. Yeah.
I'm really curious. We're getting way in the weeds a little bit. I wonder, how do you do this vocal without harming, this it just seems so violent on the throat.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's two main techniques. There's one called false chord, and there's one that is fry. So basically, without getting crazy technical, false chord is the same vocal you use while singing. So the difference is it's just a little more compressed. So you get more like a screamy sound on top of it. Fry screams is a completely different technique. This is where it's basically just kind of flapping a certain part of your vocal cords together, and then it creates this pure distortion. There is no note to it. It's just pure distortion. So the false chord screaming has a note, which is because it's the same as singing, basically, just with the technique. But the other one is just complete noise. Neither of them requires strain. Neither of them requires you to shout. But you can if you want, obviously, but it won't last very long. Your throat will be screwed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I've
yeah, they're
gotten
both,
really
yeah.
interested in that because Vegan Gays introduced me to that band To the Grave, this
Yeah,
Australian
yeah.
deathcore band. I got to have Dane Evans, the lead singer, on my channel, talk to him. That was so cool. I
That's
should have
brilliant.
asked him that question, but yeah, what a nice guy. I love that guy.
Yeah, no, some of the stuff he does is crazy, actually, with his voice. Like it is impressive, really impressive.
Really
And he can
impressive.
do it live too. Like it's
Mm,
not like it's just a recording trick. Like he does it all live perfectly. No, no stress, all good. It's wild.
yeah.
It's so cool.
As it's amazing, and someone who doesn't know a ton about the genre, I just hear like just an incredible range that he can do, just like
Yeah.
uh,
So
all.
his vocals fall into the fries. So what he's doing, he's not doing any false chord screaming at all, as far as I can hear. Maybe he does a hybrid sometimes on the low screams, but basically the high screams that he does, where it sounds like some kind of demon, that
Hmm.
that is basically what I was telling you. It's pure noise, and it comes from like the back of your throat. It's not screaming. It's just like a technique. And then what you do is you use your mouth to change how it sounds. So
Mm,
like if you make one sound with your voice and open your mouth wide and close it and make like ooh ah, like things like that, right? It's
right,
just your
right.
mouth. That's not your throat doing that. That's your mouth. Now if
Yeah.
you do the same thing with a screamy sound like that, and then you do
Hmm.
the close open, you ended up with sounds like that, right?
Nice. Yeah.
So that's what he's doing, but he's so good at it that like it just sounds like so aggressive, and that's how
Right,
good you can
right,
get it.
right.
If you practice, that you can get it like really nice, like he does. It's
So
so
that's
cool.
so that's kind of what you were doing when you were doing this.
No, mine was more false chord. Mine was more like
Mm.
so if you know the Foo Fighters,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? So if you hear do you know Breakout? The first big
Um,
song they had. You
I'm
make me
sure I do.
break out, make me
Hmm.
break out. That one. There's one part of that song near the end. There's a breakdown. It's like the one more chance before I split. He does this like segment, and that's false chord screaming. Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl, false chord screams all the time. So
Mm,
if it's not really singing anymore because it's so distorted now that it's more into the scream section, but it still has notes. That's
right.
false chords basically.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a world. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. It's an art form. It's just kind of a beautiful art form, honestly. Like, um, yeah, so yeah, that's another thing that you indirectly caused to happen by introducing me to vegan gays and all this
Awesome.
stuff, and your buddy
Awesome.
Chris Hines too, who's
Yeah,
just
Chris is
awesome.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I need to correct something. I'm just thinking more about that song, by the way. I'm not completely right. The
Okay.
screaming doesn't come in until the last part of that breakdown. He does one big
Hmm.
long scream, and that's a false chord scream there. But the build up to it isn't really screaming. Yeah. Just for
Gotcha.
anyone who wants to go
Gotcha.
check that out. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, we've been talking a while. I know you're a busy guy, so I don't want to take too much of your time more. But is there anything that we didn't cover you think or you're interested in that you want to talk about?
I think no. I think not necessarily. So not necessarily. I say that as a joke to my wife, and
Necessarily.
it just came out naturally.
Oh,
Um,
nice, nice.
not necessarily. No, I think. Look, at the end of the day, I think we need to be able to have conversations like we've had today without a fear of somebody flipping their crap and getting all really upset with you because you've got a different idea to them or something like that. I know the most controversial part of this will be the point where we talked about basically what I guess will sound to people like abolition versus like reductionism.
Hmm.
And it's a shame because we need to be able to discuss the tactics and the ways to make change as as people who want an end to all these horrors, as people who want an end to the use and exploitation of animals. We need to be able to sit down and have these hard discussions about how there are certain things that we can do which will make people perceive us as that maybe we don't want an end to all of this. Yet, even though people might see it that way, including the public, it might end up being the way to achieve it.
Hmm.
So, for example, if the public sees you as somebody who is more reasonable and less like a general hardcore vegan, does that mean they're more likely to listen? well, studies and evidence and the psychology, behavior stuff suggests, yeah, they probably will. Okay, so what do we care more about? Our ability to influence people or being seen as pure enough by the movement?
Right, right.
And this has been a tough pill to swallow for me, because I used to be one of the people that would point the finger and say that person's not vegan enough. I was one of them.
Mm.
And turning around and realizing that, holy crap, that these people are where I'm at now, that's where they've been at for 20 years. It's like, oh my God, okay, I'm a little embarrassed. I should never have said or judged people like that, because they're just trying to do the thing they can do for animals, right? I just wish,
Yeah.
I think that it took me a while to get here, and I just really hope my experience helps others get there faster than I did. It took me years. I hope other people can get here quicker time. I really do.
Well, you're
Yeah.
so fucking vegan. You are so vegan. So like I hope people understand that. Yeah, to me it's not even controversial. I can just hear that there's going to be some people that would see it that way. But look, and
I get it though. I
yeah,
understand it. I used to do it. It's not like I don't get it. I
yeah.
used to literally be someone sat there being like, oh, scoffing at somebody for suggesting a different tactic or whatever. I used to
Mhm.
be the guy. It's not like and so, it is what it is. I just want to encourage people to just try and be more open-minded and listen more to these different ideas. And yeah, that's all. And just try and get out of the, I guess I don't know what you would even call it. Just try not to be so dogmatic with people who have the same goals as you, let's say. Try
Yeah,
and ditch the purity politics, listen to
yeah.
what people say, especially when it's someone like me. And I promise you, we have the same goals. I promise you,
Hmm.
there's nothing I want more than to you know, to make this world a better place for animals, which absolutely, of course, means getting rid of all of the things and all the systems that abuse them, of course. But
Yeah.
there are different ways of making change while we're here. This is
And
the
I
thing.
know I know people who are, people know as some of the most hardcore activists are also
Mm.
involved in campaigns that would be considered welfare campaigns for politics. It's just
Yeah.
people are doing the same kind of goals and trying to achieve different achievable wins. I mean, you could even argue that some of like focusing on fur, foie gras is like, that's focusing on one aspect. Some
Hmm.
people criticize that.
Right.
Obviously that's a good thing to do though,
Of course. Yeah.
so yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So anyway, David, you're such a treasure to the movement. I'm so, so thrilled to talk to you. It's very exciting for me. So and thank you for all the support that you've given. You gave Wayne support, you've given our team support. You've been really easy to work with behind the scenes. And I just love that. And keep doing it. And you're always welcome on both of our channels. You're always welcome to reach out. And yeah, we got your back, basically.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you inviting me on. It's an honor to be invited onto your podcast. I love that people want to listen to what I have to say and talk to me, and it means a lot to me. And yeah, no, and really good luck with setting all this up. I'm sure it's going to be a success. I mean, you've already had some really cool people on, and I'm sure you're going to get even more cool people on. And I'll do my best to connect you as well with people who I think are cool, and then you can have them on, and then we can keep on this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Keep connecting the dots. Like I said earlier, we'll keep on
Damn
doing all
right.
that good stuff. I will say one more time, if people are listening to this and if you're interested in the kind of things we've been talking about here, I don't really talk about this stuff on my own channel at all, because my channel's more geared towards trying to reach people to get them to change for animals. But on my Substack, I do talk about these things. This is pretty much all I talk about on Substack. This is where this is focused, and it's free. So you can head over there. There's a couple of paid articles, but it's mostly free. So head over to my Substack and subscribe, and yeah, join in and have a read and see what you think. The comments are closed, so you can't really tell me what you think. I closed the comments there, leave them only for people, like only paid subscribers as like a feature. But yeah, have a read, and yeah, I suppose you could share my Substack and share what you think about it on your own socials and things like that if you want to.
Oh
Me to
yeah.
see it, and yeah.
And just real quick, because we're at the end of the year, it's the beginning of the year. A lot of people have been doing fundraisers. I just want to say, and David did not ask me to do this, but I know that David could use support. I think he's got a Patreon. We'll link to all that. Yeah, if you're someone, I'm not one of those people. I'm broke. Most of us are broke. Most activists are broke. But if you're
Of
someone who
course.
has money, to spend. You know, like I think you get a lot of bang for your buck by supporting David Ramms, because I know he's doing just an incredible amount of work, and you can just see all the stuff that's visible, and then there's stuff that's not visible that David does all the time. So you just, you know, it's a good investment. So I hope that people, you know, will keep that in mind. And you can follow him on social media, David Ramms, and his YouTube and everything. I'll put all those links down below, so check it out.
Thank you. And if you don't want to support me on Patreon, at least support Cliff Grant. That's what I would say.
Yeah,
I would say Cliff Grant definitely deserves a lot of support and a lot of financial support. He does great work.
Yeah, absolutely. Cliff Grant, just another super nice guy that that I love, and has been doing great. He doesn't even need me to say this, but support him anyway. All right. Take care, David.